Let's run an experiment right now. Just you. Imagine I flip a coin. If it lands on tails, you lose $100. If it lands on heads, you win money. How much do I have to offer you to make that bet feel fair? Take a second. Is $110 enough? $120? $150? If you were perfectly rational, you would accept anything above $100 before you feel comfortable. The math is simple, but you hesitated, didn't you? Most people demand around $200 before they feel comfortable. You need the potential gain to be roughly double the potential loss. Why? Because losing $100 does not feel equal to gaining $100. It feels heavier, more personal, more threatening. That imbalance has a name: loss aversion. In 1979, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky discovered something uncomfortable about human beings. We are not wired to evaluate gains and losses symmetrically. In their famous experiments, people preferred a guaranteed $500 gain over a risky gamble with equal expected value. But when facing a guaranteed $500 loss, they suddenly preferred the gamble. Same math, different behavior. When facing gains, you avoid risk. When facing losses, you chase it. Why would a rational mind flip like that? Because you are not trying to maximize money, you are trying to minimize psychological pain. When neuroscientists place people inside brain scanners during financial decisions, they see something revealing. When you gain money, your reward system activates. The striatum lights up. You get dopamine. It feels good. But when you lose money, the pattern changes. The amygdala activates, the same region involved in fear and threat detection. Your brain reacts to financial loss as if something is wrong. Not mathematically wrong, existentially wrong. For most of human history, resources were survival: food, shelter, tools. Gaining extra resources improved comfort, but losing what you already had could destroy you. So evolution built an asymmetric alarm system. Avoid loss first, seek gain second. That wiring did not disappear when money became digital. Your brain still treats a red number like a signal. And here's the part most people miss. Loss aversion is not really about money. It's about ownership. The moment something becomes yours, your brain upgrades its value. This is called the endowment effect. If you don't own a mug, it's worth $5. If it's your mug, it's suddenly worth $10. Nothing changed physically, but ownership fused it to your identity. Money works the same way. When your portfolio drops, it's not just numbers moving. It's your gains disappearing, your progress shrinking, your decisions being questioned. That's why investors consistently behave in one predictable way. They sell winners too early. They hold losers too long. It's called the disappearance effect. When you're up $500, you sell. You lock in the win. You secure the positive emotion. When you're down 1,000, you hesitate. Because the moment you press sell, the loss becomes real, final, admitted. And admitting a loss feels worse than losing more money. So you wait, you hope. You tell yourself it will bounce back. Not because you're stupid, because you want relief. Loss aversion isn't greed, it's ego protection. You don't want to be poor, but even more than that, you don't want to be wrong. Now here's where it becomes uncomfortable. Corporations understand this better than you do. Why do streaming services offer free trials? Because once you start using something, it becomes yours. Canceling feels like losing access, even if you barely watched anything. Why do booking sites show only one room left? Because missing out feels like loss, and loss triggers urgency. Why does a discount say don't miss this deal? Because your brain reacts more strongly to losing an opportunity than gaining a benefit. This isn't generosity, it's leverage. Modern markets are designed around your fear of losing, but there's another layer. Loss aversion gets stronger with frequency. When investors check their portfolios daily, they become more conservative. Why? Because markets fluctuate constantly. Small red numbers appear often. Each one is tiny, but each one registers as a loss. This is called myopic loss aversion. The more often you look, the more often you feel pain, even if long-term returns are positive. It's not just about how much you lose. It's about how often you experience the sensation of losing. Now zoom out. Think about social media. Every scroll shows you someone else winning, someone else traveling, someone else achieving. You're not just exposed to gains. You're exposed to comparative loss. Loss of status, loss of opportunity, loss of position. Your nervous system with missing the social war of turning the new victories of space. People stay in bad jobs because leaving feels like losing stability. They stay in failing relationships because leaving feels like losing history. They hold on to broken investments because selling feels like losing control. The pain of letting go outweighs the logic of moving on. So why does losing money hurt more than gaining it feels good? Because your brain overweights losses. Because ownership ties value to identity. Because admitting defeat triggers more discomfort than chasing recovery. And because modern systems constantly remind you of what you might lose. But here's the part that gives you control. When you zoom out to long-time horizons, fluctuations smooth. When you reduce how often you check, emotional spikes decrease. When you decide based on rules instead of feelings, the bias loses power. The number itself is neutral. $100 gained, $100 lost. Same digits, but inside your head, they are not equal. One feels like progress. The other feels like damage. And most financial mistakes are not made chasing profit. They are made trying to escape the feeling of loss. The real question isn't whether you're loss averse. You are. The real question is whether you're aware of when that weight is pulling your decisions. Because once you see the asymmetry clearly, you can start choosing based on math instead of fear. And that shift is worth far more than $100.